Hi, it's John the Limo Guy, and I am here in the limo, and we are on 8th Avenue, headed north, and we are at the intersection of West 58th Street. The monument you see in front of us is the Columbus Circle, and that is a monument, and the statue of Christopher Columbus is on top. Since I'm at a traffic light, I'm going to try and get a little bit better view. There you go. On my right here ahead is Central Park. What I'm doing here is I am going to go on Central Park South, which is also happens to be 59th Street. So we have Central Park on the left, and we have all of the buildings that are on Central Park on the right. And this video will include us turning onto 7th Avenue South, turning right onto 7th, and going downtown, and we will basically go through Times Square, the Times Square area. So I'm just getting into the right lane here, which is a right lane only. And I do apologize for any lengthy periods or gaps, but I wanted to pretty much give you an idea of what it's like to drive in Manhattan, so you get an idea of how long, times take and things like that. Actually, this is a Saturday morning, so the traffic is not as bad as it would be normally during a weekday. Saturday morning and Sunday morning are still good times to drive around. I gotta say though, in the afternoons on Saturday and Sunday, it's usually bad because there are a lot of people coming in from the outlying areas of the metropolitan New York area to do their thing in the city. So now we're on 7th Avenue. We're just crossing 58th Street. We're headed south. On the left is Carnegie Hall, which is this brown brick building. Famous concert hall. I guess Andrew Carnegie put the money up for it, so it's named after him. And in the distance, you can see the lights of Times Square. A very famous deli on the right, which is the Carnegie Deli, which is on between 54th and 55th Street on 7th Avenue. And again, I'm just trying to rattle things out as I see them. Once again, we're traveling south, just passing 53rd Street. And now we're coming to a red light at 52nd Street. And I'm just going to zoom in. I'm going to move the camera a little bit to the left here. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit more towards the square itself, towards Times Square. Most people will certainly recognize that as being Times Square in New York City. I'm also going to move the camera angle a bit so that it's angled up. To those of you who are visiting Manhattan, this is not a bad area to get a hotel. You can find, there are plenty of hotels in the area, ranging from super expensive to not too bad. As you get further and further west, the hotels do tend to get a little bit less expensive. But again, the purpose of this video is not to talk about hotels and accommodations. As you're going down on 7th Avenue here, headed south, once you get to 49th Street, you're sort of starting to enter the top of the square, the northern part of Times Square. And definitely here at 47th Street, which is what we're about to cross now, this is definitely the very top of Times Square. Ahead, the tower, of course, with all of the video screens and lights, is the Times Square Tower. It was originally... This, by the way, is called Times Square because the New York Times built a building in the center of the square, which is what the ball drops from every New Year's Eve, which is the building directly ahead of us, slightly to the left. Before the New York Times built their main building and office here, this area is called Longacre Square. So for pretty much most of the 19th century, this was Longacre Square. We're passing the Hard Rock Cafe on the right. We are just passing 43rd Street. I have to move the camera a little bit forward because it's shaking too much. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to make a right turn onto 42nd Street. And we are headed on 42nd Street westbound. So, let's see, again, I was talking about, it was called Longacre Square. After the New York Times left the building, it was sold, I believe, to Allied Chemical, and it became known as the Allied Chemical Tower. And for a number of years, that's what it was. Anyway, plenty of things to see and do here on 42nd Street. Disney Hotel is here on 42nd Street. There are plenty of theaters. There are plenty of restaurants. Now, as we're moving away from the Times Square area, this is sort of more, business-like area. And as we get further west, we will enter a residential area. Now we're at the intersection of 42nd Street and 9th Avenue. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go one block further west and make a right turn onto 10th Avenue, and then that will put us north. That will head us north. At the end of the video, which will be ending, I plan it to end on 10th Avenue in the 50s, I will show you on my GPS screen pretty much where we are and where we have come from, just so you get an idea of what Manhattan looks like, at least from a driving perspective. And the great thing about Manhattan for tourists is the Midtown section especially is extremely walkable and easily to navigate, because it is basically just a grid pattern, and you can, once you get your bearings on which way is up and down and east and west, you can pretty much easily get from point A to point B. So once again, we're driving, and the intersection here is 10th Avenue that we're at the light for. There are lots of places in this area of town to stay. And again, that's the purpose of this video, isn't to go over the possibilities of what you do, but just so you know, if you're anywhere between, say, 34th Street and 65th Street, okay, so that's an area of like 31 blocks, river to river. So anywhere within those parameters, if you find a hotel that is good for you, it provides the level that you need, and it's affordable, it's all good. So right now I'm on 10th Avenue, 43rd Street, headed north. And interesting to note here is that there is a Hess gas station right here. It's on 44th Street, 45th Street, and 10th Avenue. For those who are driving, it's really good to know where the gas stations are, because in Manhattan they are few and far between. We're crossing the intersection now of 46th Street. 46th Street is known as Restaurant Row. So if we were to make a right turn here, we would find within a 2-block range just restaurants lining the street on both sides. They're not cheap restaurants for the most part. If you want cheap eats, there are plenty of places here on 10th Avenue and also on 9th Avenue where you can go in the 40s and 50s. So for instance, right here, this is 49th Street, there's Desi Deli, which is Indian food. I've eaten there, it's very good. There's Fat Sal's Pizza, not bad. I wouldn't call it great pizza because in New York you can get great pizza pretty easily. One thing I do want to mention is you can get really bad pizza fairly easily too. This whole thing about New York pizza, you got to be careful. Happy Joy is a little Chinese restaurant there. You can have a very nice meal for $5. The place looks like crap, but well, there you go. It's good food though, and it's inexpensive. This is 53rd Street that we're crossing. And now I am going to 54th Street, and I am pulling in here. And I'm stopping at one of my favorite areas to stop at as a limo driver. Gee, I shouldn't be giving this information away, but here we go. One of the best delis is this deli here. It's called United We Stand. And it is at number 814 10th Avenue. It's between 54th and 55th Street. They have great sandwiches here. If you want a real sort of New York bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich, which is a great breakfast sandwich, you can get it here. Traditionally, New Yorkers will take it with SPK, or salt, pepper, ketchup. Across the street, if you wanted to go to a supermarket, there's D'Agostino, and they have a salad bar, and they also have a hot bar, which is good. There's Dunkin' Donuts right next to them, and there is another deli on this corner here. So just here, you have a lot of options. I don't know if I can sneak the camera to see, but on the corner here, on the corner of 54th and 10th, there's also a wine store or liquor store. So if you needed to buy alcoholic beverages in bottles, of course, you can get them there. They do sell bottles of wine as well as liquor, and they also sell the little nips if you wanted to do that. Buying it here is vastly better than getting it from your hotel fridge because you'll pay 3 to 4 times the price. So once again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the GPS here. I'm going to back it up a bit so that you can see New York. Okay, here we have the island of Manhattan, and the little arrow here denotes where we are on. Let me see if I can get a better view of that. It's going to be difficult. All right, where we are in 54th Street. Now I'm gonna move it in a little bit closer, and this gives you a better shot of what it looks like. This horizontal line here, that's 57th Street. The green rectangular area, that's Central Park. Central Park is a big park. It's 859 acres, which in the middle of Manhattan is amazing to have such a nice big park for our enjoyment. It runs from 59th Street all the way up to 110th Street at the northern border. 110th Street is basically, above that is generally considered Harlem. You have West Harlem on the west side, and of course East Harlem on the east side. Above 145th Street is generally considered Spanish Harlem. Above 168th Street, some people will argue these borders, but again, we're just talking here. Above 160th to 168th Street is generally Washington Heights. Above Washington Heights, which is the most northern part of the borough, that's called Inwood. And there's a big park, Inwood Hill Park or Inwood Park, and then there's Fort Tryon Park. So Inwood, Fort Tryon. Fort Tryon Park has one of the finest art museums, I believe, in the city. It is the Cloisters, and basically it's the medieval collection of the Metropolitan Museum of Art, or at least the bulk of it. Just to go there and see the famous unicorn tapestries is well worth the trip. Lower Manhattan right here. So again, this is sort of a haphazard video. This is my first attempt. I'm going to try and do better video next time, but this gives you an idea. So once again, from Manhattan, this is John the Limo Guy.